You and I both know that there's something happening beneath the surface of this reality. Something that can't be explained by logic, textbooks, or social media trends. There's a storm behind your eyes, a pull toward a mystery that most people never feel but you do. You wouldn't be here otherwise. Because if these 7 things are happening to you, your third eye isn't just opening, it's opening in darkness. And that, my friend, changes everything. We're not talking about the third eye fantasies you see on TikTok, where people think it's about glowing foreheads or psychic powers that let you levitate objects. We're talking about a raw, ancient, and often terrifying transformation of perception. The kind that unravels the world you used to think was real. The kind that cracks open your reality and shows you what's beneath it. In the first few moments of this kind of awakening, everything feels like confusion. You question your sanity. You question whether you're cursed. You question whether anyone else could possibly understand what you're going through. I've been there. I remember lying awake at night, eyes wide open, heart pounding, feeling like something was watching me. Or like I had just walked through an invisible doorway into a different layer of reality. And that's exactly what the third eye does when it opens in darkness. It doesn't give you light, it gives you sight. It doesn't bless you with comfort. It blesses you with truth. The kind of truth that burns away illusions and makes everything feel alien, even your own thoughts. The first sign? Your dreams become more vivid, and they're not just dreams anymore. They feel like transmissions. You wake up drenched in sweat, gasping, remembering symbols, places, faces you've never seen before in this lifetime. And yet, they feel ancient. Familiar. Like you've been there before. These dreams don't fade in the morning. They follow you through the day. They change you. They haunt you. Because they're not dreams. They're astral messages. Your consciousness is starting to bleed through dimensions. I remember a time when I dreamed of an ancient temple buried beneath black sand. There were symbols carved into the walls, glowing faintly violet. When I touched them in the dream, I felt a vibration in my real chest, and when I woke up, I remembered the feeling, not just the image. That's how you know your third eye is waking up. When your inner world starts to feel more real than the outer. But here's the terrifying part. This happens in darkness, or in solitude. The more your third eye opens, the more isolated you may feel. You try to explain it to others, and they look at you like you're crazy. They say you need sleep. They tell you to stop overthinking. But deep down, you know what's happening. Something has shifted. Your perception is no longer obeying the rules of consensus reality. And that leads to the second sign. You begin to sense energies that no one else talks about. You walk into a room and feel heaviness or pressure in your forehead or a strange buzzing in your body. You feel pulled towards certain people, sometimes repelled. You don't know why, but you just know you're picking up on vibrations. You sense when someone is lying, even if they're smiling. You feel when something is off, even if no one else notices. This is not imagination. It's frequency detection. Your brain is no longer filtering out the unseen world. The pineal gland, the biological throne of the third eye, is beginning to light up. And it has one function: to see beyond. But when it first activates, it can feel overwhelming. You become hypersensitive. Crowds become unbearable. Loud noises feel like assaults. You need to retreat often. You crave silence. Not because you're antisocial, but because you've begun to hear a deeper signal. But let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this. When was the last time you sat in complete darkness, in complete silence, and just listened, not with your ears, but with your spirit? Because that's where the real third eye opens. Not in light, but in void. Not in joy, but in the abyss. That's the third sign. You start to see darkness differently. You stop fearing the unknown. Instead, you start craving it. You become curious about your own shadows. You begin to explore parts of yourself that were buried, repressed, forgotten. Your fears, your traumas, your hidden desires. You don't run from them anymore, you study them. And here's the paradox. The deeper into darkness you go, the more you begin to see. The more you become light. But not a fragile light, a powerful one. A light that doesn't need to be loud, one that illuminates from within, because you've made peace with your inner chaos. That leads to the fourth sign. You begin experiencing time differently. Moments stretch, hours collapse. You lose track of time in meditation, or even while walking, or staring at a candle. You start to feel like you're not bound by the ticking of clocks. You begin to witness time, rather than being trapped in it. This is a sign that your consciousness is detaching from linear perception. The third eye doesn't see in seconds and minutes. It sees in patterns, spirals, fractals. So when your third eye opens in darkness, your relationship with time begins to dissolve. And it's terrifying at first, but it's also liberating. You start remembering things about yourself that you shouldn't logically know. Past lives, ancient symbols, sacred geometry. You suddenly know things you've never studied. You speak words you don't remember learning. This is the fifth sign, activation of spiritual memory. And this memory doesn't come from your brain. It comes from your soul. The third eye is not just about seeing the future, it's about remembering who you've always been. But this memory comes with a cost. Because once you remember, you can't pretend anymore. You can't tolerate shallow conversations. You can't pretend to be small. You can't unsee the truth. And so, the sixth sign appears. Your old life begins to collapse. Not because you did anything wrong, but because it's no longer compatible with your frequency. People leave. Opportunities vanish. Jobs become unbearable. Your external world starts to fall apart, so your internal truth can rise. And that's where most people panic. They think they're cursed. They think they're failing. But they're not. They're being stripped, refined, reduced to essence, so that the real self can emerge. And finally, the seventh sign, the one that seals the process, you begin encountering synchronicities so intense they feel scripted. Numbers, animals, songs, conversations. You think of someone and they call. You ask a question and the answer shows up on a billboard. You start to feel like reality is talking to you directly. And it is, because with the third eye open, you're no longer just living in the world, you're in dialogue with it. The simulation responds to your awareness. These signs are not random. They are a sacred sequence. And if they're happening to you, it means one thing. Your true vision is awakening. And it's not happening in the light. It's happening in the dark. Now the question becomes, will you trust the dark long enough to find the real light within you? Because in the next part, we're going to dive into what happens after your third eye opens in darkness. The gifts, the dangers, the temptations, the ability to project, to see through lies, to pierce the veil, but also the responsibility. Because once you see, you can never go back. The veil is torn, what you must master after your third eye awakens in the shadow realm. Now that the third eye has cracked open in darkness, you're no longer who you used to be. You've crossed an invisible threshold. The veil that once protected you from the raw, unedited truth of existence has been torn. You don't see like others anymore. You perceive, you feel, you sense. But here's what no one tells you: seeing is not the end. Seeing is just the beginning. Because once the veil is gone, you realize something terrifying. You are responsible for what you perceive. You can no longer claim ignorance. You can no longer pretend you don't feel the energy in a room. You can't act like you don't notice the lies in someone's smile. You've become a receiver, and more than that, a transmitter. You are now a node in the living web of consciousness. Every thought, every action, every vibration you emit ripples across the field, and that field responds. So the first thing you must master is energetic hygiene. You'd never walk around without cleaning your physical body, right? So why do most people walk around with energetic sludge stuck to their field? Now that your third eye is active, your aura becomes a sponge. It absorbs frequencies. It collects the static of the unconscious world. If you don't clear it regularly, it distorts your perception. Your clarity becomes fog. Your intuition becomes paranoia. Your vision becomes illusion. You need a daily practice. I don't care if it's smudging, breath work, salt baths, chanting, visualization, or sitting in silence, but you must cleanse regularly. Because now your system is sensitive. And sensitivity is power, but only if it's refined. Otherwise, it turns into chaos. The second thing you must master is discernment. You're going to start receiving downloads, visions, flashes of insight. But not every voice in the dark is your higher self. Not every whisper is divine. When the third eye opens, the psychic channels begin to widen. You're tuning into the full spectrum, and that includes interference, entities, thought forms, echoes from the collective unconscious. If you don't have discernment, you'll be swayed by whatever feels mystical in the moment. You'll start chasing every sign, every symbol, every shadow, and lose your grounding. Real discernment doesn't come from fear. It comes from stillness, from listening deeply, from checking, does this message expand me or contract me? Does it align with my core frequency? Is it coming from love or manipulation? You must become a spiritual scientist, honest, neutral, clear. And here's where it gets even deeper. The third thing you must master is your inner observer. When your third eye opens, your ego doesn't disappear, it just becomes trickier. It starts to spiritualize itself. It wants to be the awakened one. It wants to be special, chosen, powerful. If you're not watching closely, your ego will hijack your awakening and turn it into a performance. So you must return again and again to the witness. That part of you that watches without judgment. That part of you that doesn't flinch at shame or inflate with praise. The observer is your anchor. When things get wild the observer brings you back to center. Look, I've walked through dimensions that made me question everything. I've seen beings most would call hallucinations. I've felt the breath of the universe inside my skull. But none of that matters if you're not anchored in clarity. I've watched people awaken their third eye and lose their mind chasing illusions. I've seen others become addicted to the high of mysticism and forget the discipline that makes it sustainable. So I'm telling you now, power without purity becomes poison. That's why the fourth mastery is so crucial, emotional alchemy. Once your perception sharpens, your emotions deepen. You don't just feel sadness, you feel collective grief. You don't just feel fear, you feel ancestral trauma. And if you don't know how to transmute emotion, you'll drown in it. You'll think being open means being overwhelmed, but that's not the way. You must learn to hold emotion like sacred fire. Let it move through you, but don't let it define you. Cry, scream, breathe, dance, write. Channel it into creation, not destruction. The third eye isn't just about seeing, it's about feeling clearly. And that means making your inner world a sacred laboratory. The fifth thing you need to master is alignment through action. After your third eye opens, you'll get visions. You'll see what needs to be healed. You'll recognize patterns in others. You'll receive insights into your purpose. But if you don't act on them, they wither. The third eye thrives on integration. You must take what you see and live it. If your third eye shows you that someone in your life is draining you, act on it. Set a boundary. If you see that your job is misaligned, start shifting. If you realize you've been lying to yourself about your path, be honest. The more aligned your actions are with your inner knowing, the stronger your vision becomes. The clearer your channel, the cleaner your frequency. But if you ignore the guidance, the third eye begins to close. Not physically, but energetically. It becomes clouded. Mistrust grows. Confusion returns. Because vision without embodiment is spiritual bypass. And then comes the sixth mastery, silence as a sacred tool. Once your third eye is active, talking too much becomes dangerous. Not because words are evil, but because they leak energy. Every word you speak either distorts or clarifies your field. And when your perception is heightened, precision matters. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to share every download. The most powerful mystics in history were silent for a reason. They understood that the deeper truths are not meant to be broadcast, they're meant to be lived. When you can sit in silence and feel your presence expand, you know the third eye is anchoring. And finally, the seventh mastery, the one that seals all the others, humility in the unknown. No matter how much you see, how much you remember, how much you awaken, you must stay humble before the mystery. The moment you think you have it all figured out, your vision narrows. The third eye thrives in mystery, not certainty. You must become comfortable saying, "I don't know." You must bow before the vastness. Because the universe is not a system to be conquered, it is a song to be listened to, a dream to be walked, a mirror to be honored. Now let me ask you something that only the truly awakened will understand. Are you willing to remain a student of the unseen even after you've seen more than most ever will? Because that's the real mark of the third eye in darkness. Not just seeing visions, but living in reverence. Not just decoding symbols, but embodying wisdom. You are not here to be a guru. You are here to be a tuning fork, a living frequency, a bridge between realms. Your life is no longer just yours. It is a message, a vibration, a ripple through the matrix. And everything you say, feel, do, and are is part of that ripple. You have seen the veil torn. You have walked through it. Now you must carry the light of that seeing back into the world, not as a preacher, but as a presence. Because the final truth is this: the most awakened ones don't need to be seen. They need to be felt. And when someone feels your field, when they feel the stillness, the clarity, the fire behind your eyes, they remember something. Something ancient, something sacred, something buried in themselves. That's your gift. That's your role. That's your silent fire. Your eyes are no longer yours, becoming a seer in a blind world. Now we arrive at the final passage, the deep end of the journey. You've seen the signs. You've crossed the threshold. You've begun to master the sacred disciplines. But now comes the most sacred and dangerous truth of all. Your eyes are no longer yours. Not in the ordinary sense. You don't just look through them anymore, you see through them. The universe sees through you now. Spirit sees through you. The field watches itself through your nervous system. To become a seer in a blind world is not a title. It's not a crown. It's a burden, and it's a blessing. It is the final vow that says, I will no longer pretend I don't see what I see. I will no longer act dumb to preserve comfort. I will no longer hide what I know to protect illusions. And that vow changes everything. You begin to notice things that others miss completely. The way someone's voice trembles when they lie. The way light bends in a room when energy shifts. The way synchronicities stack around someone when their soul is calling out for change. You become a silent decoder of reality. You read people like pages. You walk through the world like a tuning fork. And the paradox is, the more you see, the less you speak. Because something sacred happens when the third eye fully opens in darkness. You no longer need to be right. You no longer need to win arguments. You no longer need to prove your vision. You simply know. And that knowing is enough. You sit with it. You let it crystallize. You let it shape your actions. You let it guide your movements. And people around you begin to notice. Not because you're loud, but because your energy becomes unmistakable. And here's something that will shake you if your third eye is open in darkness. You become a mirror that others cannot escape. They will either be drawn to you or repelled by you. There is no middle ground. Some will be magnetized by your clarity. Your presence will feel like home to those who are ready. But others? They will run. They will attack. They will accuse. Because when they look at you, they don't just see you, they see everything they've been avoiding in themselves. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to be a walking mirror in a world addicted to filters? Because this is the responsibility of a seer. You don't just perceive truths, you embody them. You don't just point out illusions, you dissolve them by existing. And sometimes that means being alone. Often it means walking away from what others call normal, because you cannot unsee what you've seen. And yet, you are not here to hide. You are here to serve. Not in the old paradigm way of self-sacrifice, but in the new way of sacred presence. True service is when your being becomes medicine, when your frequency heals without needing to fix, when your silence guides more deeply than 1,000 instructions. But this level of sight comes with temptation. And that's the final test, because the world will try to use your gift. People will come to you for answers, for guidance, for prophecy. They'll want you to be their savior, their guru, their shortcut to the divine. And if you're not careful, the ego will love it. It will crave the role. It will feed on the validation. But remember, the true seer points others back to their own eyes. You are not here to be worshipped. You are here to wake people up. You are not here to be a magician. You are here to be a mirror. And that means sometimes saying nothing. That means sometimes letting someone walk their own path, even if it leads into the dark. Because the third eye doesn't just see the light, it understands the timing. There's a sacred patience that comes with this gift. You begin to trust divine timing in all things. You stop forcing. You stop fixing. You let others bloom in their own season. Because you know that awakening cannot be rushed. You felt it in your own bones. You bled for it. You burned for it. You walked through the void for it. And now you honor the process in others. And yet there will be moments of unbearable intensity. Moments when you walk through the world and feel so much that you want to shut it all off. Moments when the density of the collective pain hits you like a tidal wave. You'll feel the grief of strangers, the fear of the planet, the confusion of the unconscious. And you'll wonder, how do I live with this sight? How do I stay open without being overwhelmed? The answer is presence, moment by moment, breath by breath. You stop trying to hold it all. Instead, you let it flow through. You become a hollow bone. You let the energy move. You let the vision speak. You become a vessel, not a container. That's how you survive. That's how you thrive. And slowly, something beautiful begins to happen. Your life becomes art. Every movement, every word, every choice, it becomes sacred. You walk through the grocery store and see symbols in the labels. You hear songs playing and feel your guide speaking through the lyrics. You sit in silence and feel the pulse of the cosmos in your chest. You are no longer living in the world. You are co-creating with it. You are in a dance with the mystery. And your steps become prayers. Your stillness becomes prophecy. Your presence becomes power. But let me ask you truly, and from the deepest place of the soul, do you trust yourself enough to live with this power without needing to control it? Because that is the final mastery. Trust. You must trust what you see. Trust what you know. Trust that your perception is not random. Trust that your visions aren't hallucinations, but summons. Trust that you are being guided. That you are being used as a vessel for something greater. And that means surrender. The true seer does not try to manipulate destiny. They listen. They respond. They align. They become the middle point between earth and sky, between silence and song, between shadow and light. And when you live like that, when your life becomes a prayer, a poem, a portal, you become unstoppable. Not in the egoic sense, but in the spiritual sense, because nothing can touch you. You are no longer afraid of death, of loss, of rejection. You've seen beyond the veil. You know this world isn't the end. You know the body isn't the limit. You know the illusion isn't the truth. You walk with ancient eyes, and when others look into them, they remember. So now, the circle is complete. If these 7 things are happening, your third eye is not just opening, it has opened. In darkness, in stillness, in the sacred womb of the unknown. And now you are not just a human. You are a seer, a bridge, a signal. The world may never understand you, but the right ones will feel you. And that's enough. Walk in silence. Walk in power. Walk in vision. You are no longer looking through your eyes. You are being seen through. Welcome to the realm of the true seers. Now go. Let the blind world feel your vision, and let the real ones awaken. The eye that watches itself, living as a constant channel of the invisible. You're still here. That means something profound. Most turn away long before this point. Most get what they came for, the signs, the magic, the affirmation, and leave. But not you. You stayed. You crossed through every door. You walked barefoot across the fire. And now you've moved past awakening. You've stepped into embodiment. But what happens after the awakening? After the fire? After the visions, the signs, the teachings? This is where the real mystery begins. Because you start to realize there is no finish line, no final truth, no top of the mountain. There is only the deepening. And it never stops. You don't arrive, you become. Over and over again. Most people awaken once and think that's it. But the real ones, the rare ones, the seers who walk in silence and power, they awaken every single day. Each morning they open their eyes and ask, what is life trying to show me today? What unseen truth is whispering through this moment? They don't live from memory. They live from presence. They don't worship what they saw last night in meditation. They bow to what is arising right now. Because living as a seer is not about being special. It's about being empty. It's about becoming a hollow channel for the intelligence that pulses behind the visible world. It's about becoming the still eye of the storm. You begin to notice that your life becomes less about doing and more about allowing. Less about trying to make things happen and more about aligning with what is already unfolding. You stop chasing signs and start seeing that everything is a sign. The way a leaf falls. The way someone speaks your name. The way a child looks at you. The way your own breath catches in your throat for no reason. You are constantly being spoken to, constantly being guided. But are you quiet enough to hear it? Are you empty enough to receive? This is not about effort. This is about frequency. And the highest frequency doesn't scream. It whispers. It hums. It glows. And you can only tune into it when you slow down, when you soften, when you let go of the need to figure it all out. And here's where you touch the final mystery. The third eye doesn't just see the world. It sees through the illusion of you. It watches the mind thinking. It watches the body moving. It watches the ego trying to claim credit for divine orchestration. And it smiles, silently, lovingly, because it knows that even you are part of the dream. Even this identity is a temporary costume. And you begin to live in two places at once. On one level, you are still human. You eat, you cry, you laugh, you get tired, you forget, you love. But on another level, you are the watcher, the dreamer, the silent flame that never flickers. You are the eye behind the eye, the voice behind the voice, the breath behind the breath. You are no longer just you. You are the field, watching itself through your skin. And this is liberation. Not the kind that takes you out of the world. The kind that lets you walk fully in it, with eyes wide open, heart wide open, soul wide open. You're not trying to escape the matrix. You're here to recode it. You're here to be the living reminder that spirit walks in form, that the divine wears flesh, that the infinite can speak through a single gaze. So what now? Now, you live it. You walk into your ordinary life with sacred eyes. You talk to strangers like they might be angels in disguise. You treat every moment like it's a message. You let your intuition lead. You let your energy speak louder than your words. You bring silence into noise. You bring depth into the shallow. You bring mystery into the mundane. That's what the world needs. Not more noise. Not more information. Not more spiritual hype. But presence. Stillness, truth. You are that. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to gather followers. You don't need to be understood. You just need to be real. Because in a world of illusion, your presence is a portal. So let the world spin. Let the blind talk. Let the noise rise. You've already seen what's beneath the veil. You've already heard what the silence is saying. You've already remembered who you are. You're not here to play small. You're not here to dim your vision. You're not here to prove anything to anyone. You're here to anchor the invisible, to walk the unseen, to embody the eternal. This is the path of the seer. This is the path of the one who sees in darkness. And now that you're here, really here, there's only one thing left to say. Welcome to the eye that watches all. Now go. Live it, silently, fiercely, unapologetically, and let the world feel the weight of your quiet fire. Your third eye is open, and the universe is watching through you.